History remembers wars, empires, catastrophes, but there exists one night that did not shake the earth, yet rearranged the heavens. No armies marched, no blood was spilled, no witnesses recorded it in ink. And yet, this single night altered the relationship between humanity and the divine forever. This is not a myth whispered in darkness, nor a legend born of exaggeration. This is Al-Isra wal Miraj, the night journey and ascension of Prophet Muhammad, a journey not of miles, but of meaning. Tonight, we do not merely retell what happened. We ask why it happened, when it happened, and what it demands from us now. Welcome to a chapter where time bends, space submits, and faith transcends gravity. Chapter 1. A world at its darkest hour. Before the heavens opened, the earth closed in. This night did not come during triumph. It came during collapse. The Prophet Muhammad had just lost Khadijah, his wife, his anchor, his first believer. Soon after, Abu Talib, his uncle and protector, followed her into the grave. With them went safety, comfort, shield. Makkah turned hostile beyond repair. Taif responded to his plea for refuge by stoning him until his sandals filled with blood. And it is here, at the absolute lowest point of his earthly life, that the invitation arrived, not from kings, not from tribes, but from the Lord of the seven heavens. Because divine elevation does not follow worldly success. It follows patience and despair. When human doors sealed shut, the heavens opened. Chapter 2. Al-Isra, the journey beyond distance. The journey did not begin with motion. It began with permission, on a night indistinguishable from every other. In a city accustomed to revelation, yet deaf to it, the laws that govern distance were quietly suspended. In a single breath of time, the Prophet Muhammad was carried from Al-Masjid Al-Haram in Makkah to Al-Masjid Al Aqsa in Jerusalem, two sanctuaries bound not by geography, but by divine intention. What would have demanded weeks of perilous travel, crossing deserts, mountains, and hostile tribes, was completed before the sky surrendered its stars. Not because distance collapsed, but because distance submitted. He did not walk this path. He did not ride an animal bred by the earth. He was carried upon Al-Buraq, a creation that defied classification, neither beast nor symbol alone, but a manifestation of a deeper truth, that when God commands, the universe does not negotiate. Al-Buraq moved not by speed, but by obedience, each stride landing where vision itself would end. This was not transportation. It was demonstration, a reminder that physical laws are not broken by the divine. They are owned. Upon arrival at Al-Masjid Al Aqsa, a place already ancient with memory, time folded inward. The air held the weight of generations. There, gathered in silence, stood every messenger who had ever carried truth to humanity. Adam, the beginning. Abraham, the architect of monotheism. Moses, the lawgiver. Jesus, the spirit of mercy. Prophets separated by centuries, by language, by circumstance, now standing shoulder to shoulder. And Muhammad stepped forward, not as a conqueror, not as a replacement, but as a completion. When he led them in prayer, it was not an act of superiority. It was a declaration of unity. That revelation was never fragmented. That truth was never plural. It had always been one message, unfolding across time, spoken through many voices. Islam did not emerge in isolation. It arrived as the final articulation of a conversation God had been having with humanity since the first breath was drawn. Al-Aqsa became more than a mosque that night. It became a witness that faith has a lineage. That belief is inherited, not invented. And when the prayer ended, the journey did not conclude. It ascended, because the night was not meant to show how far a man could travel on earth, but how close a human could be brought to the heavens. Chapter 3. Al-Miraj, ascending the seven heavens. The heavens did not part with sudden spectacle. They opened with discipline, layer by layer, realm by realm, as if the universe itself wished to teach humanity a lesson it often forgets. That elevation is never chaotic. It is earned. Each gate required permission. Each ascent required acknowledgement. For transcendence is not intrusion. It is invitation. The first heaven, Adam. At the threshold of the first heaven stood Adam, the first to bear consciousness, the first to fall, the first to repent. Here, the origin of humanity met its culmination. Adam welcomed Muhammad not as a stranger, but as a descendant who had carried the burden well. This was not merely a greeting. It was a silent reconciliation between beginning and end. A reminder that human history is not a series of accidents, but a directed arc, one that bends toward meaning. The second heaven, Jesus and John. In the second heaven awaited Jesus and John, figures forged in compassion and sacrifice. Their presence spoke of gentleness in a violent world, of truth spoken softly, yet resisted fiercely. They embodied a faith that healed more than it conquered, that endured rejection without surrendering mercy. Here, the prophet witnessed that righteousness does not always prevail in life, but it never disappears from eternity. The third heaven, Joseph. The third heaven shimmered with the presence of Joseph, a man gifted with beauty, yet tested by betrayal. His story was not about appearance, but about restraint. Joseph represented the struggle between desire and discipline, between opportunity and integrity. In him was the lesson that moral elevation often requires suffering in silence, and that the highest character is forged when temptation is strongest. The fourth heaven, Idris. In the fourth heaven stood Idris, a prophet raised high for unwavering truth. Little is spoken of him on earth, yet he occupies a lofty station in the unseen. His presence whispered a sobering truth. That recognition among people is not a measure of rank with God. Some lives echo loudly through history. Others rise quietly into eternity. Idris was proof that consistency in truth, even without applause, is enough to ascend. The fifth heaven, Aaron. The fifth heaven revealed Aaron, a leader known not for dominance, but for patience. He led a people prone to rebellion, yet responded with restraint. Aaron represented a form of leadership, often dismissed by the world, the strength to endure disorder without becoming unjust. Here, leadership was not conquest. It was endurance. The sixth heaven, Moses. Then came the sixth heaven, where Moses stood, a prophet who confronted tyranny, who split seas, who spoke to God. And yet, when Muhammad passed him, Moses wept, not from envy, but from concern. Concern for a future nation burdened with responsibility. Concern for humanity's capacity to obey. His tears were a reminder that true leadership does not end with one's own mission. It extends into the fate of others. The seventh heaven, Abraham. At last, the seventh heaven. There stood Abraham, resting against the lote tree of the utmost boundary, the threshold beyond which creation cannot pass. The patriarch of monotheism, the one who broke idols with his hands, before humanity learned to break them with thought. His presence marked the culmination of a lineage, rooted in surrender. Beyond this boundary, sound dissolved, direction lost meaning. Even angels could not proceed. Here, Gabriel stopped, not due to weakness, not due to doubt, but because every created being has a limit. And then, the prophet Muhammad stepped forward, alone, not carried by wings, not accompanied by light, but sustained by divine permission. For the final lesson of the ascent was this, that the highest elevation granted to humanity is not power, nor spectacle, nor knowledge, but closeness, and that closeness is reserved for the one who carries the weight of revelation, without being consumed by it. Chapter 4. The Divine Encounter and the Gift of Prayer. What happened beyond the seventh heaven cannot be reduced to language. No metaphor captures it. No philosophy contains it. But from this meeting came a command that defines Muslim life until the end of time. Prayer, not charity, not fasting, not pilgrimage. Prayer, originally set at 50 prayers a day, reduced, through mercy, to 5. Yet the reward remained 50. Why? Because prayer is not ritual. It is ascension in reverse. 5 times a day, the believer leaves the earth, without moving an inch, while the prophet ascended once in his lifetime. Prayer allows the faithful to ascend daily. Chapter 5. The Aftermath. Faith tested, truth revealed. When morning came, the prophet spoke, and the world laughed. How could one man cross deserts and heavens in a single night? This was not just disbelief. It was filtration. Some walked away forever. Others, like Abu Bakr, believed without hesitation and earned the title as Siddiq, the one who confirms the truth. Because faith is not believing what is easy. It is trusting when reason reaches its edge and stops. Isra and Miraj was not meant to convince skeptics. It was meant to define believers. The night journey did not end in Jerusalem. It did not end in the heavens. It continues. Every time a believer bows in prayer, every time patience outlasts pain, every time faith refuses to shrink, to fit comfort. Because elevation does not belong to those who rise fast, but to those who endure deeply. This was not just the story of a prophet. It was a message to every soul burdened by the earth. When the world breaks you, the heavens may be closer than you think. This is not history. This is a reminder. History does not end when the story stops. It waits to be understood. What you've witnessed is not a conclusion, but an echo of truths buried beneath time, of lessons humanity keeps forgetting. Because every civilization leaves behind ruins, but only a few leave behind warnings. The past is not silent. It is patient, and if you listen closely, you'll hear it asking the same question it always has. Have we learned, or merely survived? This is where the record closes, but the meaning opens. Welcome to Twisted Chapter, where history doesn't rest. It returns, and this chapter was never meant to end.